month's webinar in our continuing monthly series of content aimed at improving the lives of folks within publishing, media, and various different industries of people that attend our monthly talks. This month we're focused on a subject called Why Marketing Automation Fails Publishers, or as I will say a little bit, is Why Marketing Automation Fails Some Publishers. So my name is Brett Kierstead. I'm Vice President of Sales for Knowledge Marketing, and thank you guys for showing up. Today we're going to tackle this subject head on. We're going to be using, for the first time, so bear with me, or I'm going to use a poll question to get a little bit of engagement or questions from you. So we'll be introducing that new to our webinar today. And certainly as you have questions that come up or comments, please submit them in through the GoToMeeting box, and we'll try and get to them during the session today. So why marketing automation fails some publishers? A little bit about knowledge marketing so you understand, those of you that are new, what our perspective is and where we get our information. We're a cloud data management platform aimed at providing technologies for publishing and media organizations and integrating in the various different tools that they have within a unified platform. One of the tools that we do see quite a bit that our clients are either evaluating or using are marketing automation tools. And so our goal today is to share with you some of the observations, not just about why challenges people are having, but also some tips and some ideas on what people are doing well, and maybe some considerations you can put into practice on your own. We do this for a bunch of different folks. A lot of them, hopefully, you know, our client base continues to expand, and we're really focusing on these organizations that have an innovative mindset, that are looking to use data and information and technology to improve the way they run the various different aspects of their business. And so we're really pleased to have them as customers and continue to add to them on a perpetual basis. We're going to be about 35, 40 minutes. We'll go a few minutes over today, but here's what we're going to cover. We'll talk a little bit about the definitions of marketing automation, as we like to do on these webinars, just like we did last month, is kind of demystify some buzzwords that are out there. Last month it was personalization and all the buzz you hear about that, and today we're going to tackle this concept of marketing automation. We'll take a quick look at tools, although that's not the main purpose of this webinar. We'll talk a little bit about data and what role it plays in this function. We'll look at the limitations that are impacting publishing, what's going on there. We'll talk about some of the challenges around effort and resources. We'll take a look at the emotional component of marketing automation, and then I'll give you some simple ideas to go and apply the principles of what you'll learn today. So let's start with a quick poll. I'm going to launch this poll, and hopefully it will work. Basically, to ask one question, and that question, hopefully you have a chance to see it, is, has your organization implemented marketing automation today? Like, are you in process? Have your organization implemented marketing automation technologies and practices? And so there's really kind of three answers that are fun. Yes, we have made investments in MA tools that are rocking. No, insert your own company name in the word automation or incompatible. And maybe by the end of this webinar, I hope to say yes, that we've done some things. So I'll give you guys another few seconds to vote, and we'll compile the answers, and then we'll share them with you and then talk a little bit about what they are. So finish up in the next 10 seconds, and then we'll go. It's an interesting question. Maybe some of you are saying, well, I have implemented it, but we're not rocking, so the different things can vote. So we pretty much have most people in and voting, so I'll close that and look at the results. So of the yes, 48% of you said yes, we've made investment in MA tools and are rocking, which is great. So half of you are feeling confident. 24% are saying no, our company is incompatible with automation. And then 28% of you are in the maybe category, and by the end of this you hope to say yes. And I think that what you'll find today, as in most organizations, is when you start to understand what goes on in the category of marketing automation, you'll find that you're probably doing a lot more things than you thought about, even if you haven't necessarily purchased a tool. So thanks so much for that, and that was a success. So I'll tell our marketing folks we can do that again next month. But an interesting comment is think of it this way, on whether this stuff works or not. I mean, knowledge marketing, we use a system called CMark, and it's a content marketing automation suite. And the fact that you're on this webinar, does that prove that it works, right? You got here, you showed up, you took time out of your day, and ended up here on this webinar because our wonderful folks in marketing used the system to get you here. So does that prove that it works? And what is that in? What kinds of processes and things do we do? So we'll revisit the tools we use and the processes that we have later, but it's an interesting question when you think about the particular result that was achieved. So let's talk about definitions for a little bit. Let's do some formal. So if you think about the word marketing, right, we're talking about marketing automation. It's comprised of two words. So what is marketing? If we look at Wiki, as a simple definition, it says marketing is communicating the value of a product, service, or brand to customers or potential customers for the purposes of promoting or selling that product, service, or brand. So marketing is a function that happens in all kinds of places. It happens in email and advertising and signs and magazines and trade shows and websites and mobile and in front of bathrooms and on blimps, right? Everywhere that we go, we are bombarded with marketing, somebody trying to put a message in front of us about something that they want us to take action towards, okay? Automation, the companion word, the definition of automation is the use of various control systems for operating equipment and other applications with minimal or reduced human intervention that improves quality, accuracy, and precision. Okay? So out of this world, you have house cleaning automation, right? You got the Roomba. You have parenting automation, or the neglectomatic baby chair, as a friend of mine always called it. You have cooking automation, right? You have things that automate various different aspects of the machine. So if you have a marketing function and you want to create automation associated with that, you end up with marketing automation. So we know, at least definitionally, if we put these things together, we can kind of understand what we're trying to achieve here. And why are we trying to do this? Well, the processes of leads and selling and touching and getting people to go from a state where they're in into a state where they're in a action mode related to your message or your product has a lot of touches. There's a study done by Aberdeen, and many people will say that it takes something like 7 to 10 touches to go from top to bottom in a process of marketing. And so we are really looking for ways, as that gets potentially more diverse and more complicated, to make it more efficient. So if there's a way to apply automation to this, logically it would be something that we would want to seek out. And when we talk about touches, if you think about your business, what are we talking about? Well, you touch people in a variety of different ways. You touch them through new content, through repurposed content, through your own offers, through third party, through your sales contacts, through social, through audience engagement, through events, through circulation, through website ads. I mean, you're touching people in a lot of ways, and all of these are potential candidates for some form of automation. And we're going to talk a little bit again today about where the options are and where some of the challenges are, but understand there's a lot going on in your business every day. Some of the examples of things you might think about or understand is, here's a marketing automation activity. People will set up like a triggered email, right? So some kind of automated, like, well, we're going to send out an email, and if somebody opens it, we're going to automatically do this. If they click on it, we're going to automatically do this. If they do nothing, we're going to automatically do this, right? Or Twitter. You have Twitter feeds, you're communicating through your various different social channels, and instead of going out all the time and posting, you might say, oh, we want to automate the postings. So instead of a human doing it, we want to schedule that. Or we want to recycle content, or we want to provide new content or advertising. We want to use an automated mechanism to get this content communicated. Or we may want to use automation on our websites to control ad placement or ad viewing. So let's say we have an ad block, and when someone shows up on the website, we want to use automation and business rules to apply a particular ad to an individual person based on some profile or some previous behavior. So again, these are marketing automation functions. It's the automation of processes and the placement of content based on a set of rules that we can configure in advance, okay? So hopefully by now you're saying, you know what, come to think of it, we are in the world of marketing automation, you know, the kind of the answer yes, question number 3, because you're probably doing a lot of these things in one form or fashion, even if you haven't gone out and made the traditional purchase of a tool that would fit this category, which we'll talk about later. So operationally, the components of marketing automation, again, think a little bit about this practically. Operationally, marketing automation requires some processes that have to be dealt with or handled in order for this to work. An automation process typically requires predetermined sequential decisions. So we just said if they open this, then when they do that, the next thing we want to happen is this, right? So we have to say, gosh, you know, that predefined sequential decision is something that we need to think about. We also need to think about correlation. So again, if this, then that. So if they're interested in this, then we think they're going to be interested in that. Or if they do this, then we want them to do that. So, or if they purchase this, then they purchase that, right? So there's correlations that we have to make in our mind in advance of any communication, because if we're going to automate it, we have to set it up prior, which we'll talk a little bit about more. We also have to have a pre-created content bank, because if you're going to plan something in advance and something is going to get sent out, like the example maybe we saw on Twitter, if we want to schedule something to go out in 4 hours from now, we have to create the content for that now for the most part, or else 4 hours from now we're going to be sitting there creating content. So we also have to make sure that we've got a bank of content, enough, whatever that is, whether it's an ad or a newsletter or a message, or it doesn't matter, all the different things we talked about, we have to have that pre-created if we're going to facilitate this. And lastly, again, the fundamental premise is that automation is proactive. It's not just in time or reactive. You know, if we go back to that opens and clicks example, if 2 days after I ran a campaign, I went and did an analysis of everybody that opened the email, and then I created another message, that's not automation. That's not proactive. That's reacting to it. If before the campaign starts, I set it up and say, hey, 2 days after, for everybody that has open, I want this to automatically happen, that's automation. Okay, so automation by nature in your workflow for marketing is a proactive function. So again, why I think a lot of you are probably doing some of this stuff, and even if you haven't categorized it that way, it falls into this category of marketing automation. So you see things like this, these flow charts where if they click on this link, then do this, fill out a form. Did they fill out the form or no? If they did, request contact. If they didn't, are they a user? Do we know who they are? You know, I mean, so you guys, there's a workflow mindset, kind of a flow charting mindset that gets applied to the processes of automation, like any kind of production line that you have to think through. Similarly, there's a calendaring component or a scheduling component that you also need to think about, right? So let's say that this is an example of a month's worth of marketing, and we have planned activities and content messages and strategies that we're doing in this calendar over the course of the next month, right? And we've determined that on this day we want this to happen, on this day we want that to happen, and even within a day when somebody does this, we want to do that, right? So we kind of lay out this whole plan. If we look at the way this is kind of, gosh, there's a lot for us to do. How can we automate some of these functions? Okay, so one way to think about it is if their requirement in your campaign is 10 steps, there's 10 different things that you want to happen. In a traditional non-marketing automation world, each one of them is sequential. You kind of do one, it happens. You do the next one, it happens. You do the next one, it happens. You react to it in kind of a sequential manner over the course of time. What marketing automation does, good or bad, is it is designed to move forward and automate and pre-organize some of the work that you might have done later. Again, in a perfect example, I'll just make it really simple. Like I said before, if step 1 is send an email, and step 2 is for everybody that opens, send them a second email, which says this. In the first scenario, in a non-marketing automation world, after that email gets sent, somebody goes and looks at it, they take a number 2 the next day, they pick a time, they go create content, and they send it. Right? That's just marketing, sequential marketing. Marketing automation says, you know what, before we even set up the campaign, we're going to pre-program as many steps that we can, whether that's how we publish our content out to social, how we republish, how we repost, how we remarket, how we do all these things in advance is a big component of marketing automation. So one of the challenges, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, is because in some cases it doesn't eliminate work, it just moves it forward. That's one of the reasons why people challenge with deploying it, because they're like, gosh, I know all these 10 steps, but I didn't save any steps. I just moved them all to the front. That's not every case, but that is one of the challenges when marketing automation just simply leads to pressing everything forward, not eliminating steps. Okay, so let's talk about a definition. Let's come up with our 2 definitions and then get going. So one definition would say, when we combine all this together, is marketing automation is any process where pre-configured programming logic delivers a future marketing function or content message without anyone touching it at the time of distribution. Okay, so we set up the email, 2 weeks later, something's going to happen, or every time somebody does something in the future, it happens in an automated manner. Okay, I'll add to it in the publishing world, and we'll add a data component to just say, for you, it's any publishing process where data can allow for that pre-configured programming. So just because I have a hunch, or I say, you know, I think the best thing to do is this, or we're just going to say, when they click, we're going to send them something. You know, we want to try and use data and profile information to make that transaction or that automation step a little more thoughtful, other than just something that is sequential based on activity. So anyway, any publishing process where data can allow for pre-configured programming logic to deliver a future marketing function or content message without anyone touching it at the time of distribution. So again, if that's the definition of marketing automation in publishing, a lot of you are probably doing some form of this today. Now here's the promise. If you pull up ads for everybody that says they offer marketing automation, here's what you see. Simple is in the first one. Easy, 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 easier, right? So obviously these folks that offer marketing automation functionality are trying to make it clear for some reason that it's easy. Whether that's because it is or because they want it to believe, that's up to you, but it's clear that the consistent message is trying to make this process simple and easy. So I'll ask you this. Going back to what the Ron Co world of set it and forget it, is set it and forget it available to publishers through marketing automation tools and processes? Is Ron Co marketing automation getting ready to come out that truly represents set it and forget it? So from a tool standpoint, let's talk about that. So you know, the ecosystem that you guys have internally, we won't spend a ton of time in this section, we'll have a little fun, but you've got a bunch of tools that you use to run your publishing business, from your content marketing system to data to all these different tools, and that's part of the ecosystem that we're looking to automate some of the functionality and interrelationships. You know, these are some of the names that you see in the marketplace: Hubspot, Pardot, Eloqua, you know, and interestingly, it's hot because all of them have been acquired or are acquiring technology. So there's Oracle bought Eloqua, and Salesforce bought Pardot, and Microsoft Dynamics bought Marketing Pilot, and HubSpot's in the acquisition mode. So it's clearly this space is hot as a technology, and brands that you're starting to become familiar with, and companies that are in big categories like CRM categories are acquiring technologies in this area. Investment is interesting for those of you who have evaluated. If you just kind of go out and look at some pricing guides, there was this one pricing guide that we were looking at. It talks a little bit about how the costs are, and typically they're on a contact basis. So if you're managing 1,000 contacts, it's, you know, $2,400 a month, or some other ones have less pricing. There's different rules about the different contacts, but it's not free. I mean, there's definitely an investment cost, and one of the challenges that a lot of our publishing clients have is, you know, if you look at this pricing, a lot of them are based on, you know, 5,000 contacts, 10,000 contacts, And a lot of you have million-member databases or what have you, and when you really start to do the math, it becomes very, very expensive. The good news is, and again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on tools, but if you're interested in looking at tools, those tools are good, but there's also a lot of free stuff that you can do. There's a lot of marketing automation and free tools that are out there. When you start and think about the different functions of what you want to accomplish, don't just assume that you want to race to get the most powerful functionality. We'll talk a little bit about why that's been a failed strategy for some here in a minute. So I talked a little bit about knowledge marketing. So we use a suite called CMark, Content Marketing Suite. It combines together in our own tools. So we're a small company with 70 people and a growing business. We use some other tools like Adobe and WordPress and Salesforce. We use some of our own tools and knowledge marketing offers in this area. But the interesting thing about CMark, before you go out and Google it, is it's actually our team. It's Candace, Molly, Alex, Reza, and Kara. So that's CMark. That's marketing automation for us using these different tools. But we get a lot of credit for the team that's out there, and a lot of the things that they do just come from hard work, not necessarily from some universal suite that exists. So don't go Google it. You won't find them. Let's talk about data. So data is an important part of this process. In order to make informed decisions in any automation process, you have to have information. And data is really going to give you forward insight into what future content distribution based on that correlation. So if this data tells us this, then do that, as we talked about before. And what you're trying to do is, instead of guessing about what something's going to do, should we do this or should we do that, you're trying to increase the certainty that you're going to get a desired outcome, whether that's a lead or a registration or a sign-up or an attendance based on some kind of data. So your goal is to move it towards 100% certainty. A publisher, many of you forget, are full of significant amounts of data. We won't spend a ton of time on this because we talk about it quite a bit, but you have a great asset of demographic data, behavioral data, and contextual data that you've collected across both online and offline sources. And this asset is incredibly powerful for those of you that bring it together. Many have not. Many are struggling with this issue, but I encourage you, as part of any marketing automation initiative, to first get your data in order. Because the more organized you are on your information, the more rich your profile is, the more powerful those tools will be. You're increasing your performance, you're increasing that functionality if you have a strong data foundation. Okay, so let's get into the limitations now. Let's talk a little bit about the 5 areas where publishers are running into trouble when it comes, or issues or lack of optimization when it comes to deploying marketing automation tools. Okay, there's the online, offline data dilemma. There's consumer versus B2B mindset. There's the varied roles of audience, suppression rules, and lead score. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Most marketing automation tools, if you go and do research, were designed originally for online world. They were premised on, someone clicks on this and they're on the website, or they're in a shopping cart, or they're going to send an email in relation to an online activity, which is fine, except that in a publisher world, sometimes 50 to 80% of all the data that they have is offline, whether that's through print and circulation magazines, through webinar registrations, through live events that they've done, or through other lists. Much of the actual real value of what they have isn't in that online world. Now, granted, more of it is moving there, but historically, that's a big gap. Also, that data and the tool from a data processing and collection standpoint is not necessarily built for a publisher mindset or even for audit capability, right? So so we have to be able to maintain audit integrity when it comes to data collection, and a lot of these marketing automation tools don't really have some of those audit considerations nor integration with those other types of tools for verification. So a lot of times publishers are running into saying, gosh, it works in a small part of my business, automation and collection, but it doesn't take into account everything that I have from an asset and from a data requirements needs. So that's one challenge. The second challenge is consumer versus B2B. A lot of you on the phone are in the B2B trade world. That's your audience, whether it's from your own selling and marketing or your readers or your attendees. And you think about the transactions and leads that you're generating, they're very business-to-business oriented. So this genesis that marketing automation had in online consumer retail has its roots in high volume, similar attribute, algorithmic consideration. So if you have 1 million people in a transaction or in a transaction pool, you can really come up with some good assertions. But if you're onesie-twosie or very targeted or working with a more narrow vertical universe, you may not have the velocity to create real automation efficiencies. Also, a lot of transactions that occur in a B2C world are single person. It's a considered purchase, but it's by me. Well, when you're doing a lead program or a considered purchase across many different people or a complex sale that may have 8 or 9 individual buyers in that transaction, sometimes that B2B marketing automation only gets you a small part of the way because that sale is very complex and very individualized message that needs to get to that person. And lastly, the ROI and justification is more complicated. It's nonlinear. If you generate a lead through marketing automation that goes into a complex 6 to 9 month selling process, and that was the end of it, the ability to tie back some of that return on that investment and the actual dollar value all the way back to the originating marketing automation program is a little bit more difficult. Because there could be 30, 40 different interactions, sales calls, messages, and meetings that led to that ultimate revenue. Okay, so that's the second reason why publishers, in particular in B2B, struggle a little bit with that. The third one that a lot of people say is one of the challenges that they have is that the marketing automation tool and related CRM only thinks of the person that is in that marketing automation program as a prospect. The challenge is for you, a publisher, when you have somebody in your database who's therefore in your marketing automation program, they jump around from prospect to customer to lead, whether that's for you, maybe it's a lead for a third party, then all of a sudden they become a prospect for some other tool that you have. Maybe they're a prospect for your magazine, but they're a customer for your newsletter. When the person jumps around as an individual from role to role and how you treat them on every individual campaign and marketing automation event that you encounter, a lot of the systems are they break down because they have a hard time distinguishing in their structure and setup what role that person is. So that's another area that is difficult that you have to be very careful with, and a lot of marketing automation tools and publishers struggle with that ever-changing role. The fourth one, which people forget about and get hung up on, is suppression rules. I know this is ugly, and it's a very non-glamorous subject, but it's very critical to a publisher because the complexity of opt-out rules trips up a lot of the marketing automation tools that have an email delivery component. You've got a big complexity of opt-out rules. When a marketing automation campaign goes out through email and somebody is opting out, are they opting out of third party? Are they opting out at a brand level? Are they opting out at a master suppression level? Are they opting out of your editorial? All of those business rules have to be considered in your opt-out language for any marketing automation campaign. And if it's not done well, all of a sudden you're at risk through marketing automation of having somebody master suppress or opt out of everything, including your editorial. And so the devastating effect to a publisher is that the downstream adverse effect on editorial due to an ill-conceived or inappropriate marketing automation campaign can be multiple times the cost, especially if that was a hard-to-acquire name. Okay, so suppression rules is something that often trips up folks that are trying to do this. The last one is lead scoring. Everybody loves lead scoring. Every time we put it up on the slide, everybody says, oh, tell me about lead score. And lead scoring is a measure of engagement. It's something that marketing automation tools are very hot on promoting. But the problem that they encounter, it goes back to the multiple roles. When they score somebody, the scoring algorithm and mechanism is typically based on what is the likelihood of converting that person maybe to become a customer or a particular engagement that you want. The problem that publishers have is that their lead score, that assessment, that algorithm is very complex. Whose perspective? What makes them a qualified lead? Well, for their own products, are they an existing customer? Is it a qualified lead score for an advertiser? What would make that attractive to an advertiser? What criteria is important? Whose perspective are you scoring against? Somebody's an 18 and someone's a 92. You see it all the time, like, oh, I'll take the guy who's a 92. Well, he could have nothing to do with the profile that is specific to the campaign or the advertiser that's looking for that person. A lot of people say segmentation is scoring. Well, if I have all these different criteria, then that's the lead score. Well, you might as well just provide the names on the list than providing some kind of mythical score that no one understands. So the rudimentary lead scoring algorithms that exist in most marketing automation tools only paint a very general picture. They don't fill in the story that a publisher needs in order to be clear in what justifies or determines whether one is more effective or another. Okay, so there's a couple other areas. Those are the 5 things related to publishing, and let's talk a little bit about resources. This is one that we hear constantly, and here's an example. This is a quote: "The success of marketing automation adoption is not contingent on features and functions, but rather how an organization aligns marketing and sales." I've heard that so far on 2 different calls in the last few weeks. We didn't anticipate a support cost of 2 times the technology. Marketing automation, as this whole webinar invite stated, is an incredibly bought technology, and most people get it and they're like, holy crap, I didn't realize how much time and resources it was going to take to do it. And this is not an indictment on Marketo, because they specifically go in and say it's a great tool, but the quote was, is this, and this might sound like you. We were a small business without a proper marketing department. We had 1.5 people. Marketo was supposed to help us overcome that lack of staff, but actually we needed to dedicate a lot of time trying to make it work. We also quickly discovered that marketing automation is a beast. It devours content. If you don't feed it, it dies. So I think when I talk to a lot of publishers, they spend so much, and rightfully so, time and energy on content creation for their own products that they don't have the depth of resources nor the focus on creating the amount of content that a great marketing automation program needs to handle in real time or in advance all those sequential transactions and all those sequential content communications. So, it's a great concept, but a lot of people are caught thinking, gosh, this is going to make things easier, and in some ways it does. It may automate the distribution of content and help save some cost and effort there, but still somebody's got to create all that content in advance and make it ready and prepared for distribution at a future date. There's also lacking skill sets that a lot of publishers have. Again, we talked about the depth of marketing content, but they talk a little bit about a data scientist, someone who can help interpret the data and help you decipher and come up with recommended pre-programming ideas for downstream marketing automation. There's also a lot of words coming out right now about a marketing technologist. You need to be somebody that is very strong in marketing principles, but also having a software engineering mindset. I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of those people. But if you're going to do it with as much content as you have and as big of an audience as you have, you better have people that understand marketing and technology, or else you're going to underutilize some of the capabilities of these tools and just simply use them as an email tool. So these lacking skill sets is also an area that a lot of publishers are realizing, gosh, I'm not making best use of this technology because I don't have these people. Last or next is emotional consideration. We talked about this on last month's webinar, but what does your marketing automation convey? Nobody, I don't care what anybody says, but as a human being, we don't want to feel, at least I don't want to feel like I'm part of automation. I want to feel like what I'm getting in my experience is for me. It is personalized for me. Now, I know what's going on behind the scenes, but the question is what you're doing conveying to that person that they're part of a marketing automation, or do they feel like they're getting something individualized from a service perspective? Are they the press 1 to hear this? What is your question? You could say things like this. I mean, that kind of experience is not what we want from marketing automation. We want something that feels like a very personalized experience. So what you're trying to approach is automated personalization, using all available data to create a very personalized, as much as possible, experience based on commercially reasonable ideas. I mean, you can't send, if you have 1 million people in your campaign, you're not going to create 1 million different messages. You're going to have to make some kind of logical conclusions of grouping people together into, like-minded or like attributes, whether everyone who clicks or everyone who likes this kind of content or everyone who's downloaded this topic or everyone who's been to a previous webinar or everyone comes to this page with this profile. You're creating, we call it peopleization, so you're grouping people together into categories to try and offer them a personalized experience. The question is did you set up your marketing automation in a way, especially in B2B, that made people feel like it was personalized? A lot of people think about it technically and they don't test and say, oh gosh, what was the experience really like end-to-end for someone that chased each of these paths, and what is it doing to our brand, and what is it potentially doing to some very important and expensive people that exist within our database. So hopefully you understand that there's some things in here that whether or not you've bought Pardot or Marketo or any kind of formal technology tool, or whether you're just using a bunch of different systems within your normal flow of how you run your job, that there's some principles that you should apply, because marketing automation is good. It's good in the sense that it achieves efficiency, as one of the questions on here. It's definitely done right, a cost savings. It also helps people like me that if you're forgetful, and you say, gosh, I forgot to send that out today. I mean, if you pre-configure it, you know what you're going to be doing. It does set you up in order to have some things happen in an automated manner. Those are great tools. Those are great principles, again, whether or not you have a full suite of tools or you just use some things you have today. So the things I would suggest if you're looking to get into this further, or you're looking to kind of apply the principles of today. Number one, as we said, evaluate free tools. Think about it like, for example, someone says, oh gosh, one of the most important things that we have is we want to automate the feed of our editorial content out to Twitter, and we want to schedule out content that we have from the past and articles in our content management system. We want to get those out on Twitter more. Well, there's free tools that can help you publish and organize in an automated manner a feed of content through Twitter. I mean, that's a great use of automation tools to make something more efficient, as opposed to hiring somebody to monitor, your Twitter postings all the time and every time you want to send something out there to do it. So there's definitely free tools that you can look at to help you with certain processes. Number two is get your data in order. We've talked about this webinar after webinar, that if you don't have your data organized, especially in this case offline and online together, if you put that together as an asset, you really do have a great marketing automation asset. You do have the ability to target and segment and personalize in a very unique way that a publisher has, because they have so much audited offline data that a lot of other people don't, because they're just purely online content providers. The third is be thoughtful of the sequence. Don't just blast content. There's so much continued, despite the fact you think everybody would stop, there still continues to be perpetual blasting out. Got to send a blast. Got to send a blast. And then I'm going to send another blast. Blast, blast, blast. It still is pervasive in your talk. And I would think that marketing automation principles and segmentation, if you think that way, tend to break down your communications into more logical chunks. 4, if you're going to do this, don't underestimate the staffing needs. Hubspot, all of these tools are great. They're great tools. They're really sexy. They've got a great UI. They are easy to use as an application. But the amount of work that goes to support them, again, from a content, from an analytics, from a programming perspective, is sometimes underestimated. So make sure you understand, if you're going to tackle or invest in these tools, that you've thought about the amount of support that they're going to need, especially when it comes to a content perspective, as that analogy we said before. And lastly, if you're going to set up anything in a marketing automation environment, meaning you're just going to trust that your pre-created ideas are a good user experience. Say, oh, over the next 7 days we're going to send these campaigns, and for everybody who does this, we're going to do this, we're going to publish this. Whatever that flow is, just make sure you assess the overall experience yourself beforehand. Test it out. Don't just assume that it has a smoothness to it. Don't assume that it's personalized, because a lot of times it ends up being what we said before. People get into this feeling of automation. You know, I feel like these ads on my page are automated. I know no one's thinking about me. I know this email is part of an automated campaign. You just want to make sure, to the best of your ability, you find ways to stay out of that negative emotional experience when it comes to how you do marketing. So hopefully that was helpful. We had a couple of good questions. We'll get to one really quick. We talked about the online world, you know, and the emergence of the world of online information is exploding. You know, you have social, you have digital products that you offer, you have websites, you have mobile. You know, basically, if you want to think of anything digital as anything not print or not, you know, in a kind of in an Excel-oriented world, you know, something that's in a, you know, you have to take data from a separate database and bring it in. Anything that can be captured through a measurable click, a website visit, a form registration, a click on an ad, something in an online environment, you know, a social interaction. All of those things, as we know, are growing exponentially. And again, it's not just on the inbound side, but it's also on the distribution side. You know, you want to be getting your content out in, you know, in the most automated way. I mean, if you have, you know, if you have 100 different Facebook pages and you have all these different channels, and you know, you're a diversified publisher with 6 or 7 different brands, if you want to get content out in a systematic way into all those different channels, marketing automation of content is a great idea. It's a great place to do it. It's a great way to use those tools. But you know, again, marketing automation and content, that's for content distribution, but you also want to use that data you collect online for selling programs. Again, whether that's audience development, you're trying to use data collected online to do audience development activities. You want to use data that's collected online for maybe lead programs for an advertiser. You want to use them for, heck, for circulation renewals. Whatever it might be, any kind of automation of that communication using both on and offline data is best when that comes combined as a single process. So again, you know, publishers have been, unfortunately, or in the past, really so limited in the amount of data you got, because you typically got it from your audited data from your magazine, and now you're blessed with significant amounts of information, and the utilization of that both online and offline is what's really making those that are good at marketing automation in your space very good at it. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming. We went a few minutes over. Hopefully we're on time. Thanks for participation in the poll as well. For those of you interested, you can download this. We'll send you a link to download the recording of today, and certainly go out to our website. There's some different new e-briefs out there. There's different messaging on different topics that are relevant to the publishing industry. So again, everyone have a great day. Enjoy this spring that's out there for many of us, and hopefully we'll see you all again next month. Take care, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks.